Okay, folks, I'm going to replay a recorded game here. I'm going to at least do one, possibly two. These are games that are recorded by my students. Let me say this too. It's important to review any game you can. My strong preference, I love reviewing recorded games by Paul Morphy. I've been meaning to do more recorded games by Emory Tate, the late Emory Tate, the late great Emory Tate, and Susan Polgar. But don't always think that you have to review. It's only profitable for you to review games by grandmasters or FIDE international masters. All recordings are good to go over, particularly your own. So this is a game that was done in 2013, March of 2013 at the Queen City Classic, Cincinnati, Ohio. One of my students was playing. She unfortunately didn't write down her opponent's name, but and it was a game. The written analysis was done by another student of mine, Jordan. So, okay, white moves first, e4. Of course, it's just a pawn move because there's no letter for the pawn. Black's response is e5. Then my student did qh5. Really brought that queen out rather quickly. I thought that was a little too aggressive myself. Black's response was nf6. Then white's response was bishop c5. So it's the bishop c4, bishop to the c4 square, right? Black's response was g6. Again, it's a pawn move, so it's right there. And then white's response is queen f3, queen moves back. Here's one thing I want to point out real quick. See this right here, the f7 square for black? F7 square for black, that's black's most vulnerable square. That's black's most vulnerable square. And white is attacking that with the bishop and with the queen. If black doesn't make the right response there, it's mate. Can't block, can't run the safety, can't capture because it's protected by the bishop. The only piece that could possibly capture this queen is the black king. Black king can't do it because of the bishop there. So my student is playing white. She's being rather aggressive here. All right. So nf3. So black's response, black fortunately saw that, does nf6. White's response is d3. I think she really did that to open up the dark square bishop. You got two bishops, a dark square bishop and a light square bishop. There's two things you're going to learn in chess. Colors and numbers are very important. All right? So that was BG. No, wait a minute. They did d3. So black's response was bishop c5. So the bishop to the c5 square. Sometimes students will be a little hesitant. They're like, well, what should I do? Here's what I say. Find the square first. It's a bishop, so what bishop can go to c5? Well, this one can, because bishops move diagonally, so it's obviously this one, right? In chess, everything's logical thinking, folks. White's response is bg5, bishop to g5. I like that move right there because if black was to move their knight, they can move their knight. It's a legal move, but it's not a wise move because they move it, boom, the bishop will come down and take the queen, most powerful piece. This is what we call a relative pin. So it's black's move. Black sort of ignores the pin, and they castle. What's the symbol for castling? 0-0. Why do we castle? We castle to protect the king. Black, again, she's still a little aggressive, but she wrote down this notation correctly. Bx nf6. She said the bishop captured the knight on f6, the black knight on f6. In doing that, it's a double attack against, well, no, it's just an attack against the queen, but it's an attack against the queen. Her queen is backing up that bishop there. Black's response, qe8. White's response, QH3. Wow. White's being very aggressive. Black's response is bishop E7. This bishop right here goes back to E7. Obviously attacking that bishop right there. They don't want that bishop there. White's response is NF3, developing the knight. Developing the knight, so it looks like she's wanting to get this bishop in the attack, 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 and she's also ready to castle her king. All right? One move, two things accomplished. Black's response, BX, BF6. I'm going to hesitate a few seconds, and in your mind you say to yourself, okay, well, this is what she did. All right. Bishop X on, captured the bishop on, white bishop on F6. White's response, Queen H6. Getting right up in there on that guy's grill. Black's response, Knight B4. Right offhand, this move looks rather innocent. Here's one thing I want to say to particularly the novices and beginners. Knights, you have to really train your mind's eye when it comes to the knight. See, pawns move forward, they capture diagonal. Kings move one square at a time in any direction. Queen can move however many directions. Rooks up, down, left, right, horizontal. Bishops, vertical. Knights are 1-2-1 over. That's not a usual way we sort of see things go. So you right offhand, you're thinking, well, the knight moved there. What's the big deal? Well, here's the big deal. If white doesn't see what they're doing, 1-2-1 over, boom, check, boom, they're going to lose that rook. This is your second most powerful piece. So you gotta, when your opponent moves that knight, you gotta sort of like think a little bit. And that's exactly, fortunately, what my student did. She moves knight A3. Usually don't like the knight on the side because, I'm not going to show you this right offhand, just take my word for it. When you move your knight to the side, you've decreased your knight's mobility by 50%. You've decreased your knight's mobility by 50%. When you move the knight towards the center, you've dramatically increased his mobility. But she did this here to do what? 1-2-1 over to protect that pawn, to keep this knight from going here, check, lose the rook. All right, so black's response is D6, pawn move, right? Moves the pawn up, this pawn's now protecting here. Now this light square bishop is free, it's come out. One move, two things accomplished. White's move, knight G5, knight. Well, this is the only knight that can go to G5, so went right here. Okay, no problem. What do you think white might be doing? Well, if black's not paying attention, white can go right there. It's checkmate. Oh, so you might ask, well, why can't that black king just capture that white queen? Because it's protected by the knight. Again, you got to watch how that knight moves, what it's capable of doing. So if he went there, couldn't capture back, no other piece can capture back, can't block, and he can't run to safety, it's mate. White's being very aggressive here. So black does, bishop captures G5. Fortunately, black sees this. Not only is he stopping that mate, but he's also threatening the queen here, okay? So the queen's not too intimidated because there's nothing protecting this bishop. So he takes here. QX bishop G5. I love it the way she writes everything out. She just didn't say QX G5, she said QX BG5. Writes it out. That's very good. Now it's black's move, bishop E6. So this bishop's going right here, attacking here. White didn't care. White says, okay, we'll exchange pieces. Because really, if you were to see everything, they're equal. They're equal in what you might say in captured material. So if you're equal in captured material, it's okay to exchange piece for piece as long as they're equal exchanges. But if you're down captured material, you want to avoid that. If you're down captured material, you don't want to do exchanges. It's sort of like trying to outspend Bill Gates. It's not going to happen. At least not on this side of heaven, right? But if you're up, yeah, it's okay to exchange because at the end of the day, you're up material. So white bishop captures e6, black bishop and e6, right here. Here's black's response. F, f7, x, bishop e6. I'll give you a couple of seconds to look at that. Pawn on f7 captures bishop on e6. Boom. Remember before I talked about one move, two things accomplished? Well, that capture, what it accomplished, it stopped that, it got that white's bishop, but now it's also opened up a file of an attack right here. Before, white had the momentum, really attacking the black king. Now, boom, black has come out of that. And you got the control in this whole file right here, and your king's right, the white king's right there. So now the momentum of the game has changed. White's move, h4. You may think, well, man, isn't white sort of ignoring this? Well, yeah, she is. But she's a very aggressive player. She's doing a little bit of a pawn storm here, and you're going to see the importance of what she did here. Later, you'll see it later. Then the black queen does q, f7, boom. Now you set up a battery. Look, if white's not careful, it's going to bring that queen down there. Check. It's not going to be mate, but that king's going to be running all over the place. As soon as that, in this situation, if this happens, he can't capture, protected by the rook, can't block, so he's forced to move. As soon as he moves, he loses castling rights. He can no longer castle queen side or king side. And why do we castle? We castle to protect the king. Okay. So, boy, black moves the queen there. Okay, so it's white's move now. White's move. Look, you see that battery there? She ignores it. This child's trying to increase my high blood pressure. Goes right there. So black is thinking, she's not paying attention. Brings the queen down like we said, right? Makes sense, right? There are only three ways to get out of check. Run, block, or capture. Can't block, can't capture, so it's forced to run. The white king goes here, KD1. It's pretty much a forced move because you can't go here, can't go there. It's pretty much a forced move. Now white's lost castling rights. Now white has two powerful pieces attacking it. So that's quite a turnaround for white. Now, black's move. Rook A8 to rook D8. The rook on A8 goes to D8. It's white's move. Remember what I said, how white is being pretty aggressive? H5, X, G6. Boom. Why is that important? Well, everybody knows about pawn promotion. If you don't know about pawn promotion, immediately get with your chess coach. This white pawn is now 2 squares away from promoting. That pawn, white pawn gets to the 8th rank, it can become any piece it wants. It cannot stay a pawn, it cannot become a king. So white's close to turning this into a queen or a rook. It's not, obviously that's not going to be good for black. So white's move, black's move, rook f6. I guess they're thinking, well, I'll go after this. And black still has this threat of this piece, and this piece going against that white king. Okay, so now it's white's move. If you've been paying attention, right? If you were white, what would you do? You know, put this on pause, bring your friends over and say, hey, you know, what were some things you do? Bring your chess coach over. You know, what were some things that you would do? Because for a moment there, again, white was really attacking the black king. Then the momentum shifted. Now black's attacking the white king. But now we're about to see another shift. Shift that favors white. Well, here's what happens. Rook captures h7. Boom. It's not check. But now you've got this piece and this piece and this piece attacking. Black's response. Rook d8. No, rook d8 to rook f8. Rook d8 dash rook f8. Because remember, either one of these rooks could have gone to f8. So you have to specify which rook went there. Was it this one or this one? Rook d8, rook f8. Now you got a heck of a battery going on. If you're playing black, this piece. Boom, boom, boom. Just sort of look at it like George Foreman, Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali. It's going to be an ugly day for you. I'm sorry. All right. But let's see how white responds. Again, I would hesitate right here, and you should ask yourself, well, what would you do? If you were to move the rook there, the black king would just take it. This pawn could go up, but what's the big deal? This it would be threatening this rook right here. It could capture, promote to a queen, but black king come over and take it. Here's what white does. Check. He can take that piece. You can't block it. He can take it or run. What would you do if you're in that situation? Now you're beginning to see the importance of reviewing games. Because they're reviewing particularly good games, because there's a lot of meat in them. It really, you see great situations, and it just really, you just ask yourself, well, what would I do in that situation? Here's what black did, and some people are surprised at this. Here's what black did. KG7. No X, didn't capture it. KG7. Boom. That's what they did. And if you were playing white, what would you do? Because it's checkmate. What would you do? You wouldn't go here, put him in check, but it wouldn't be mate because you just back up and take it. This pawn's only move forward; they don't capture left or right. So you got to move that. You got to move that queen. Where would you move the queen for the checkmate? Well, you move the queen to Q H6, and it's checkmate. King cannot go here because of the pawn. King cannot go here because of the pawn, the queen, and the rook. King cannot go back because of the rook. Black cannot block. It's checkmate. So here's an interesting question, though. So obviously, white won. But let's back it up. Here again, this is the importance of reviewing your games. There's a lot of meat in them. Ask yourself, well, why didn't black just take the rook? Why didn't you just take the rook? Assuming that black is just like just doesn't get it, they had a reason for not taking the rook. What is it? This player, I vaguely remember some of the things my students said about this game, and my students said, "Oh, she was good," but I kept wondering, but why she didn't take the rook? And my student showed me. So let's say, as opposed to moving up, black captured the rook. And my student said, it could still be checkmate. I said, well, how? And she said, watch. She moved the rook there, check. He cannot move up. He has nothing to block it, so he's forced to go there. It's a forced move. He goes there, right? It's now white's move, right? Mate. Can't go here, here, or there. Can't block, can't capture because it's protected by the pawn. So I think black saw that two-move checkmate on there. But again, let me emphasize this: review games, review them. There's a lot of meat there. And what I always do with my students, I just say to them, okay, let's analyze this. What would you do? What wouldn't you do? What'd you think of this move? And then at the end, I always say, like I'm saying now, what did you gain from this? What did you learn from this? Okay? All right. So that's a reviewed game. Then last thing I just want to say, this is a game played by Sarah, my daughter, and it's a game played back in 2013. So thank God she listened to Daddy at least once in her life, and she recorded her games, and she preserved them. This was actually one of her notebooks. She kept it, and she's kept her other games. So again, this game is done in 2013, and I still use it in teaching and in getting my students to think about it. Thank you.